The sun's about to explode and a pale man is stalking your house at night, waiting until the moment you are alone. Forced to let people inside your house, you have to make the gut-wrenching decision every night that decides whether you let in a man-eating visitor or a kind kindergarten teacher. In this video, I cover the entire story of every single guaranteed human in the game No, I'm Not a Human, meaning that in every scenario, these individuals are always going to be safe to let inside. Not only am I going to tell you their entire story, but I will also provide an extra mini analysis to tie them back into the main narrative. While she has one of the saddest stories in the game, it actually teaches us important facts about how FEMA operates behind the scenes. The widow approaches our door dead tired, asking if she can come in to rest. Our character questions where she came from, where the woman says that she doesn't remember, and that she is so tired she might just pass out under our window. We ask if her friend is sick, but she corrects us by saying that is her husband and that he is also dead, where she just can't give him a proper burial. The next day, we try to ask her if there is anything she needs. She brushes us off, saying that all she wants is for her dead husband to still be alive. When we try to give her water or food, she refuses us again, wanting to just sit by her husband. Our character then leaves her alone, where she briefly reminisces how her husband died despite trying to assure her everything would get better. We ask how the corpse she is holding died, but she says that she cried too much and is too overwhelmed to answer. We then suggest that he needs to be buried, but the widow fights back, saying that she just got him back and doesn't want to immediately bury him. We ask her what she remembers about him, and she starts recalling a memory she had at a friend's place. When the two were younger, they were just hanging out while drinking, but suddenly the usually quiet husband suddenly asked for a guitar. He then started playing a song that the widow absolutely loved, but when pressured to play other songs, he said he had to go and awkwardly knocked over a glass and dropped the guitar. It turns out he only learned that one song just to impress her. Then, the widow shows us the only picture she has of that day. When the next day comes around, we try to pry further on what happened to him, to which she blankly responds that he dies. We apologize, and she says sorry back, with her blaming the group responsible for her sadness. The protagonist asks what happened, and we finally get an answer. When the husband wasn't feeling well, he was told to go to a new FEMA center, but it turns out that was actually one of the quarantine zones. When she tried to check up on him later, they informed her of his death, but wouldn't let her take the body. She then hatched a simple plan, where she wore one of the lab coats, walked in the morgue, and easily took his body. Our last conversation is brief, as she has made up her mind to leave that night. We ask what she will do next, and she tells us that her plan is to go to their home and find the guitar. Even when told she could stay, she just tells us she only wants to go home where she belongs. While it is not said clearly, it is implied that the widow is planning to end herself when she reaches the home. Also, she shows how incompetent FEMA is at really anything. Not only did they kill her innocent husband, probably while trying to discover some visitor signs, but they also have laughably bad security, explaining why the quarantine zones were so easily overrun. Even though he has one of the most abnormal proportions in the game, he is one of the few characters guaranteed to be a human. When he knocks on our door, he tells us about how he tried to take shelter at a nearby bar, but they kicked him out. Mainly because of his personality. We ask whether or not he is a visitor, where he mocks us, saying we won't get a straight answer anyways. Our character tries to ask him why they kicked him out, with the bar guy responding that someone didn't like him, and maybe it was a good thing he was kicked out for his own safety. The next day, we questioned him why they threw him out once again, and the bar guy blames the chain of disasters happening around the world, causing everybody stress. His rage bottled up to the point of climbing onto the bar and screaming at everyone to stop blaming everything but yourself, which probably got a few people angry at him. After that, we ask if things are any better here. The bar guy tells us that he tries his best to not bother people, where his nerves almost cause him to spark up more arguments, but he stops himself as he realizes it's not worth it. We ask if he's okay, noticing that we smell something on him. He admits that he drank some of our beer to relieve stress. He tells us that we all will probably die soon, whether it's by the sun or visitors, and even if we somehow defeat the visitors, it will be humans that bury each other. We ask if he feels better, but he just comments that we will all die someday, and even questions what will happen to us after we die. We have a few options, but all of them end up making him feel worse, with the bar guy asking to be left alone. Our final conversation starts with us once again asking if he is okay, where he is frustrated at how how small our house is, commenting that it's not high enough to comfortably hang from since he is so tall. He just wants the whole situation to end, but is powerless in changing anything. Overall, he is one of the most normal characters in the game. While he may seem rude at times, he is really just accidentally directing his anger at the character when his frustrations really lie in the current state of the world. Kind of like the cashier lady. His purpose is most likely to be a tutorial for the player, where someone who talks with aggression and has a super unproportional body is actually one of the safest people to let inside your house. The first time we see her is unlike almost every other interaction in the game. Instead of trying to convince us to let her inside, she is instead asking to retrieve her dad who stayed the night. We ask her what her dad's name is, and she realizes that we are probably testing to see whether she is a visitor or not. We ask how she got here in one piece, and she comments on how it feels like opposite day, where people sleep during the day and go out at night. Right before we get her dad, she tells us about a game they made up, where they roll dice and each time they move furniture near the door. While it is subtle, our neighbor is really trying to barricade their door at night to stay safe from intruders. The next few nights we can see her playing with her father outside, but after noticing the bodies, they stayed indoors. A day later, their house catches on fire and the little girl approaches our door to be let in. We ask what happened, and she says that people killed her dad. We ask who did it, and she says that visitors came to their house and killed him while they were talking. We attempt to talk to her again the day after the protagonist tried to ask about what happened, but she breaks down before saying anything important. We tell her to rest, where she can be heard calling non-stop for her dead father. When the next day comes around, we ask how she is holding up. The little girl says it's okay here, but misses being home. We then lie to her, saying that it's being renovated, where she asks us a barrage of questions about what's going to happen. Our character asks if she saw what happened, where she admits she's not entirely sure. She saw her dad get hit, but she also watched as he got back up and left, giving the daughter hope he will come back. This implies that the neighbor was knocked down and probably killed, then was turned into a visitor. In our last conversation, we tell her that she needs to accept what happened. The little girl seems confused and asks to watch cartoons on our TV, then gives us her friend's phone number to invite her over. We try to rip off the band-aid and tell her that her dad is probably dead. The neighbor's daughter tells us we didn't see anything and that he was still moving when she left. Our character questions her why he hasn't come yet, and she tells us maybe he is too busy beating up the bad people. We apologize about her dad, and after staring at us, she starts wailing if we call her friend's phone number. It turns out that her parents killed her. After finding out that their daughter matched most of the visitor signs, the husband killed his own daughter. This small exchange reveals that the biggest victims of this calamity are children. Even if they are completely innocent, the TV makes us believe that basic human signs such as white teeth and hairless armpits means someone is a visitor. So it makes you wonder, who are the real monsters? The visitors or humans themselves? He is actually the very first person who knocks on your door and appears even before night one. Our neighbor greets us, asking how life has been. We say it is the same as it ever was when our neighbor finally reveals what's going on. After a call with his cousin, he found out that something weird is happening with the sun and that people are crawling from underground called visitors. We ask what's happening with the sun, where he tells us he's as confused as us, even suggesting that it's going to explode. He then tells us his cousin told him to never be home alone, so he went out of his way to check on us. We let him inside and our neighbor tells us he's going to be waiting in the kitchen when we wake up. When morning comes, we approach him while he's sitting in our chair. He probably saw the news, as he once again iterates to never go outside and to let others in. We ask why we should let strangers inside our house, but our neighbor tells us that he heard from his cousin that there is a person going around asking if we are alone, and to always say no. We tell him that we hate dealing with people, but the neighbor tells us that we have no choice. He advises us to check everybody for visitor signs, making sure to take a careful look each time, and to not only rely on TV for information, but also look outside our windows. Our character asks what to do next, but our neighbor coldly responds to stay alive and hopes that this nightmare will end. He has hope in the government and tells us that we can stick together if we are forced outside the house. He gives us his phone number, which will be the only way we can learn about his story other than from looking out the window. Before he leaves, he gives us a case of beer, saying that that it's from his brother-in-law. The next day we can call him, and he asks if we let a few people in yet, and we ask if he's taking people in too. Our neighbor says that he has to, even if his daughter doesn't like it. At night, we can see him playing with his daughter, but on the nearby window we can see the dead bodies of a few teenagers. When he was walking with his daughter, he accidentally stumbled upon it and finally realized how dangerous it is outside. We ask if his daughter is okay, and he isn't completely sure. Even with all of the weeds, his daughter ended up seeing one of their heads, and she can't be convinced it's just her imagination. That night, we can see a group of FEMA employees outside our neighbor's house, appearing to be taking soil samples. We call our neighbor the next day and he reveals what actually happened. They asked about the people staying at his house, then took one of his residents. We asked where they took them, and our neighbor was equally left in the dark. He was told they were taken for tests, and his trust for the government disappeared. We are about to hang up when he asks us for a favor. Our neighbor wants us to take care of his daughter if something happens to him. We promise that we will, and he thanks us. When we look through the window, we see his entire house in flames. His daughter knocks on the door and confirms that her father is in fact dead. Our neighbor so far is the only character in the entire game to have some sort of relationship with the protagonist. While they aren't the closest, the concern they show for each other might even be on the level of a friend. His end was truly a tragic one, as his daughter reveals that he was killed by visitors. You might think that he could have just stayed inside his house with his family, but the truth is, he had to let people inside, otherwise his wife or daughter would have been taken away by FEMA. It was simply misfortune that resulted in him letting a visitor inside his house. Or, as hinted by the vigilante ending, it was radical people like the vigilante himself who ended up killing him and burning his house, since he let people in his house so carefree. His story actually begins on the television, where we get an emergency announcement that wildfires have erupted everywhere. And from that point onwards, we have a chance for the firefighter to knock on our door. He comes to us knocking, asking to be let in. We ask who he is, and he says he's a fireman. While taking out forest fires, he accidentally got caught in the sun, but the surrounding smoke blocked most of the sunlight, allowing for him to still be alive. We ask why he isn't at a hospital, where the firefighter says they don't exist anymore. After the visitors came, all trust in others disappeared. He actually made the correct call, because considering that the only medical professionals left work at FEMA, they probably would have dissected him to discover if he's a visitor or not. The firefighter adds that he would have preferred to be out there dying with his buddies, and tells us that he doesn't have much time left anyways. He then hands us a FEMA slip, but even crudely remarks that it's actually dangerous since anyone who goes to the zones ends up dead. The next day we ask how he is feeling, where the firefighter tells us it's worse than he thought. He estimates that he has less than a week left, but he thanks us, as a roof over his head did ease the pain. But he once again regrets not being outside fighting the wildfires with his friends, saying that he has nothing left to lose anyways. We question why he hasn't gone home, and the firefighter reveals that he actually has kids. It turns out he doesn't want his appearance to scare them and have their final memories of him being a charred skeleton. Instead, he would rather have them believe he died putting out fires. Our character asks where his uniform is, and he responds that the bosses took it because the fires are burning up so many people there isn't enough equipment to go around, and the bosses care more about the uniforms than the huge amounts of firefighters that die, probably because they are harder to replace. The protagonist asks where the forest fires came from, and the firefighter tells us it's because of how dry the forests have been recently, making them easy to catch. He thinks of the fires as another misfortune humanity has to face, like the visitors. He then hands us a necklace that he was going to give to his family that was made of dead bees that once turned honey into sun. While that probably made no sense at first, it is actually a reference to a Russian poem named Just for Joy, take from my palms by Osip Emilovich Mandelstam. Our last conversation with the firefighter starts with us telling him that he looks awful. He tells us that his time has come, and he once again regrets not staying with his buddies and possibly saving others. He curses his bosses, then asks us for a smoke. We give it to him, and he considers it the last nail in the coffin. He takes a long puff and leans back, using his last moments to fantasize about spending time with his friends. After a few more coughs, the firefighter takes his last breath. Out of all of the characters in the entire game, he is one of the few who could be considered truly good. Even after knowing about his impending death, he still uses his time to think about others. He tries to protect his family from being traumatized and is a simple man who just misses the times he spent with his friends. She is one of the few characters who knocks on our door, not even intending to be let in. She wants to talk to us, so we ask her what happened. She tells us that she wanted to help as many abandoned children as possible. After the visitor signs appeared like perfectly white teeth, many innocent children were deemed tainted and feared to be visitors. She tried her best to care for and love them in the rundown kindergarten, but she notes that she wasn't able to save them in the end. We ask what happened to the children, and she coldly remarks that they died in the flames. The other townsfolk were terrified the children might actually be visitors, so they locked the doors and nailed the windows of the old kindergarten shut while the children were still inside, burning it down and forcing the teacher to watch it all. The next day, we show concern and ask if she's okay. She isn't sure, and questions how full-grown adults could be so terrified of children. We tell her that people do worse things, and she asks what could be worse than killing children. Our character asks how long she's been a teacher, and she answers only about 3 months. She admits to finding the children annoying at the time, but after the cataclysm, she realized all of their futures could be ended if she let them die. She then references the song Army Dreamers in a few lines. We approach her the day after, apologizing for the hard questions. She tells us she feels better and comments on how defenseless children are. She tried her best to take in as many abandoned kids as possible. The teacher noticed a pattern in how many parents threw out their children without a second thought, making her wonder if they were ever wanted in the first place. We ask if she has any children of her own, and she denies it. She wonders if, had she had a family, she would have been like the other parents who abandoned their kids, recalling how one of the arsonists was the parent of a child she tried to protect. We try to ease her pain by telling her the deaths weren't her fault, but she cannot shake the hollow feeling inside her. She wonders if the parents even loved their children to begin with, and hopes she was able to give them a little bit of that feeling before they died. In our final conversation, we ask if something is wrong. The kindergarten teacher opens up, saying she is skeptical about what kind of future is left after this mass extinction event. We ask if she's afraid there won't be a place left for her, and she comments that her gentle heart is not fit for violence, and she cannot survive in this new world. Our character asks whether she is really going to just let herself die, and she imagines a world where children have to learn from the murderers who survived this event. We now have a very important decision: yell at her or disregard what she is saying. If we shout at her to pull herself together, she will be stunned for a moment and then start crying. Our character puts their hand on her shoulder and then leaves her alone. Or we can tell her that we don't have time to mope around. She tells us she does not have a cruel enough heart for this, and the events she has witnessed are burned into her mind. She then says she cannot be strong like us, and that there is only one way out for someone like her before she grabs our gun and shoots herself. The kindergarten teacher was simply a soul too innocent to survive in such a ruthless world. She is probably the kindest character in the game, putting the needs of dozens of children over her own survival. Her story further shows how the most affected by the cataclysm were children who were wrongfully accused of being visitors. Considering the horribly traumatic events she had to endure and her adamant reluctance to fight, death is truly the only release she could hope for. When he approaches our door, he asks in one of the most awkward ways to be let inside. We demand for him to return the ones he took, but he responds confused, realizing that we probably think he is a FEMA officer. He tells us he pulled this outfit from a corpse as a precaution against the sun's radiation. We ask who he is then, and the man in a hazmat suit tells us that he's a regular factory worker who built fridges but recently quit. The next day, we once again try to clarify that he's not with FEMA. He says that he's not with them, and suspiciously that he found the uniform in a car, which immediately goes against what he told us the previous night. We call him out, and he makes up that he found it in a car on a dead guy, and that the FEMA uniform would protect him from visitors, which once again doesn't match up. We tell him that it's probably a bad idea to wear a FEMA suit, but he disagrees. He tells us that if he can explain himself, they would probably let him go, remarking that they aren't some secret society. On our third conversation, we've had enough and force him to show us his FEMA ID. After shaking him down, he finally gives it up, revealing that he really was a FEMA employee, then begs for us to keep this a secret. In our last conversation, we ask why he tried to hide the fact that he was with FEMA. He tells us a story about the time he picked up a guy showing visitor signs. After being in the quarantine zone, he died, and his wife came yelling, demanding for the body back. They tried to tell her that it broke protocol, but it didn't stop her from camping outside, continually demanding for the body. He said that after a while, a few of the officers caved in, giving her the body, which resulted in them all all being fired. He added that she was so crazy that instead of just burying him, she decided to drag the corpse around with her. We tell him that FEMA workers are bastards and he feels personally offended, trying to put the blame on the crazy woman while saying he was just doing his job. The man has had enough and says, "Screw you," before leaving during the day, meaning that he either burnt up shortly after or is awkwardly waiting on our porch until the night. The crazy woman he was talking about is actually the widowed woman, who has a completely different account of that story, where she put on a lab coat to steal her husband's body back. Like most situations, the truth most likely lies in the middle, where the FEMA agents probably willingly let her steal back her husband's corpse without much struggle because they felt bad. The fact that the only FEMA agent we can check is also a guaranteed human means it's pretty safe to say most of them are as well. The officers aren't the real concern, but the mysterious figures behind the scenes controlling them. While every other character in the game speaks our native Russian, when we first meet Wireface, it almost looks like he's saying absolute gibberish. But you can actually interpret what he is saying pretty easily, revealing a pretty sad story. He first appears at our door randomly, with his mouth sewn shut, and simply uses gestures to ask to come inside. The next day, he is shown with the stitches cut off, and he actually tries speaking to us, which of course makes absolutely no sense. But if we use a simple cipher, known as the @bash cipher, where the opposite letters of the alphabet are swapped, we can translate what he is saying. He reveals that because of his foreign language, some other people sewed his mouth shut, where our character obviously responds that we can't understand them, and he remarks the same sentiment back. The character asks how we are supposed to communicate, and he offers the suggestion that we could repeat each other until we understand, which just makes our character even more confused and leads nowhere. Our character finally takes a hint and asks how he is doing, even patting his shoulder and pointing at his wounds. We once again ask if he's good, but he tries to repeat what we are saying again, and wonders if the same disaster is happening in his home country. We ask how he's going to get home, and make a house shape with our hands, where Wireface responds that he was simply here to visit a friend, but was unlucky enough to get caught up in this whole disaster. We ask how he's going to get home, and mimic a plane with our hand, where he questions if planes can even fly still, but he hands you the number to his nation's embassy. Once we call them, they flatly state that there is no way to get to his country. Our character tells the representative on the phone that we need to send someone back, but he says that flights are not allowed, leaving just dangerous boat travel. We ask if they could at least take him in, but they say that they have no more hotels and that there is nothing they can do. We respond that we can't even speak his language, where he once again iterates that they are already overwhelmed and can't help. The conversation then just delves into passive-aggressive remarks due to the whole situation. We went to Wireface the next day and asked about his smile, while pointing at his face. He says that he found out that the trains are still running and has a new hope of leaving. The next day we ask if someone can drive him home, but he pretty much says that he plans to leave tonight to the train station. It seems like our character is finally understanding a little bit because he asks about the train, and Wireface simply shouts about how glad he is to finally return home. The sad part is that the embassy already informed us that all transportation systems do not work, except for boats, meaning that he probably misheard them and is almost guaranteed to not make it back. While they are an extremely elusive group, they teach us a lot about the inner workings of the story. On day 8, we get a surprise visit by the cult leader. He comments that our house is perfect, where we of course ask him what he's talking about. The cult leader says death has taken a liking to our house and that its presence here is strong. We ask why he is here and dressed like this, and he refers to the group as the harbingers of a new faith, where they strive to achieve death, because she is trying to simply free us from this chaos, and that their mission is to bring her closer, with it being the only way to find salvation. We ask what he wants, and he says the cult must perform new burial rites, with our house being the perfect place for it. After that, the cult leader tells us to protect his followers. We try to decline, but he says that our house will be burnt to the ground. If we threaten him further, he says that others of the cult will simply douse the house with gasoline while we sleep, leaving us with no other option but to help him. The next day, the news quickly covers the new cult. They say that the same thing has occurred across multiple cities, and because of the dangerous actions they commit, they are also wanted by the government. We can now notice that on the couch of our living room are the 3 followers the cult leader has us protect. The conversations aren't that interesting, but all of them are obsessed with achieving death, A few days later, we notice the death cult piling up firewood near our house, preparing for the burial rites. That is when the death cult leader appears again, asking if we have protected their flock. If we have successfully kept all three safe in the house, he will return again later to invite us to the ritual, achieving one of the endings. But if we don't, we can see them the very next night tightening themselves to firewood, ready to achieve death. We can actually see the aftermath, where their charred bodies cover the nearby field. With FEMA agents examining the incident, a black creature crawls past their bodies, supposedly feasting on their burnt flesh. While the death cultists may seem crazy at first, they might be rooted in an ounce of truth. In one of the endings, we can actually meet Death, the god they worship, who also lives underneath our house, who tries her best to offer peace to anyone who reaches her. So, burning the whole city down can be seen as an act of patronage to help everyone who's being terrorized in this new world. And that concludes this video. Thank you for watching, and if you want to see more, there actually is one final character that is a guaranteed human. Watch the video on your screen to learn the story of the blind man and half a dozen more of the most dangerous characters in the game.